Hey everybody, it's Danny. It is now July 20th, or is it the 21st, 22nd? Not exactly positive at this moment because, oh my goodness, I have been losing track of time for like the last 3 months, y'all. But anywho, whatever the case, oh wait, it's not even July, it's June. Yeah. Okay. I knew that. I promise I did. Okay, it is June 20 something. Okay. So, it is now that time when schools are starting to talk about what they are going to do in terms of will they bring the kids back? Will it be a hybrid? Will it be completely like normal? Doubt it. Not right now. So they're starting to kind of have those conversations. Some districts are being better with their transparency in terms of their process and sharing what they're considering with parents and stakeholders than others. And so I just kind of wanted to take a moment and kind of like discuss what the options are that are out there on the table so far and just give my honest input about it. And I would love to hear from you guys because I'm in Georgia, so I'd love to hear, like, just for the rest of the country, like, what is everybody else hearing? Like, what are your school districts considering? Because this is such a different time, that we're in. And as somebody who's been in the education field for numerous years, it's very interesting to me to see just how quickly these schools had to kind of change, from going completely in person. A lot of them, I know some were more advanced, but I think that was just a very small percentage than others. But I think for most of us, our schools immediately were caught off guard with the closures and were not necessarily prepared to take everything full digital. So some did a better job than others, as I've been talking to different people and hearing. And so here, our state has put out, they've broken it up into like 3 separate categories in terms of how severe the spread of the virus is. So what to do if there is low to no spread, minimal to moderate, and then substantial spread. And they've put out guidelines for how to operate under each one of those. Things from closing down the water fountains, wearing masks, not having the kids to have lunch in the cafeteria, minimizing transitions in between classes, all of these recommendations. But then it's also up to the school to decide exactly how they're going to implement it. Oh, another one was too, is if it was a substantial spread, that they recommend a complete closure of the school. Low to no is pretty much like it was before the pandemic in terms of going to school every day. And then if it's minimal to moderate, our state is recommending some form of hybrid approach. So it's up to the school district to decide what does that look like. And so some of the things that I'm hearing around here between some of our different school districts, it's mainly in the hybrid space that this is new, right? Because we're used to going every day, Monday through Friday, from whatever our hours are. That's like what you would do, low to no spread. We just got through doing the substantial, which was the complete closure. So if we go back, it looks like it's going to be a hybrid. It's going to be somewhere in that middle. And so some of the things that I'm hearing are a combination of sending the kids to school anywhere from 1 or 2 days a week and allowing them to have digital learning for the rest of the days, and then taking one of the days for a deep cleaning of the school. And they would separate the kids out into groups. So if it were going to school twice a week, then essentially you'd have 50% of the population at the school at any given time, and they would kind of flip-flop. So maybe going on a Monday and Wednesday for group A, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays for group B. And then also I've heard, and if it was 1 day a week, it would take it down to like a 25% population at the school at any given time. And then each group would either go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I think pretty much consistently I'm seeing close it down on Friday to be able to do a deep cleaning. But another option that was mentioned was half days, right? So having the first group to go in the morning and then they would go home to have digital learning for the rest of the day. And then you have another group that does the exact opposite. So they start off their digital learning in the morning, and then they come to school at the lunchtime frame, and they have a half day in the afternoon. So I'm sure there's some other combinations out there, because there's so many different things that you could do. I mean, technically you could do weeks, right? So you could have group A to come for a whole week and then have a week off. You could have group B to come, the opposite week and flip-flop. So there's so many different combinations that can be done. It's impossible to cover them all. But what are my thoughts about all of this? First of all, insanity that this has become our world so fast. But I like the hybrid approach, just because, statistically, if we reduce the number of kids, we reduce the risk of spread, as long as we are still making sure that we educate our children about cross-contamination and the importance of personal body space, and keeping the school itself clean. Because even if they're doing a deep cleaning on Friday, technically by the time Friday comes, you've had 100% of the school there and then you wait to Friday to clean. So let's not do that. I understand deep cleaning, right? But we should be doing thorough cleaning all the time. Get the kids involved. Whether it's 5 minutes before we change classes, if we're going to change classes, we have some cleaning spray and everybody wipe down your desk and your seat. I think that we need to do that. That's going to be important. So what do I think? I think that it can work for the most part, depending upon how they implement it, right? So I think that the schools will have to get really creative with thinking outside of the box. So even when I mentioned the week on, week off, that's a strong option, I think, because it allows a kid to go and see all of their teachers every day, and to get core instruction, and to go home and work on assignments that are related to that instruction. So it's kind of like a flipped classroom type of approach in reverse, but you could do a flipped classroom absolutely with that. So I think that can work. The problem that I'm going to see, the biggest problem out of this hybrid model, is going to be who's going to watch these kids while these parents are working, and who's going to help the kids when they need help when the parents are working, even if the parent is working at home, right? So I'm fortunate enough that I already worked from home a couple of days a week before this, but I went 100% when this happened, and I see myself continuing at 100% for the foreseeable future. So we'll see how that goes. But even still, if I want to hold on to my job, I need to be able to actually do my job. So there's a little bit of a difficulty there. I see it more so probably for the younger kids. I think the older kids would be more independent, but you still would have to check up on them and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. But that's where the hybrid model, I think, is really helpful, because being that they have to go back and they have to see their teacher, there's something to kind of hold them accountable for that. So I like it in that aspect. But the other thing is, so what about the teachers who have kids, which is probably almost all of them? So if they are doing all of these different hybrid versions under everything that I've heard mentioned, with the exception of Friday, they're working every day. So if they're working every day and they have kids who are in school, who's making sure that their kids are okay and having digital learning? So I think that the school system should come up with something for those teachers, whether it's having a room on site, for them, so they can bring their kids with them and their kids can do their digital learning in a separate room. But I can already see it. They're going to have an issue with that because of supervision and potential liability issues. But they got to figure something out with that, because that's just not going to work for them. And if you expect your teachers to take this, this giant step and change, you need to provide them all around support to be able to do so. So I see that as being a huge issue. The other issue that I see, and this one is just as big, but our special education population, right? So I heard from so many parents that digital learning just does not work for the special ed population. I think that statement is somewhat true, that it doesn't work for everyone for sure. Not just special education. That does not work for everyone, hands down. I literally talked to a friend of mine who has a child who's on the spectrum, and she was still having to go into work. She's in the military. There was no working from home, and her child was having complete meltdowns behind the digital learning, piece of it, being behind that computer. So I totally get that and empathize with those parents. I also think that there is a subset of the special education population that it could work for if done properly. So again, what are we doing to support those teachers to make sure that they have the resources that they need, the training that they need to pull this off? When we did this the first time, my daughter's school, I think they did, my oldest child, not the youngest, well, middle child. My oldest child, I think her school did a fantastic job considering it was short notice. But if this was something that we had time to plan for and we knew, okay, this is the plan for the school year, I would have expected so much more. She saw each of her teachers. She has two teachers. She has she was fifth grade then, so next year middle school is going to be totally different, which I hate for her that she has to start off middle school in the middle of all this craziness, but that's a whole nother thing. But so she had a general teacher for most of her subjects and then a separate teacher for math, because they try to start getting them a little bit used to changing classes in fifth grade. So she had the math teacher and then her teacher for everything else. And so she saw each of them once a week. In reality, she should have seen them a lot more than that. And a lot of the lessons that they gave her, I feel like they were definitely on grade level, things to do, but they were very independent and not as much instruction focused. They were more so activities that she had to actually work on and create the content. And also I think a part of that was the fact that we were at the end of the school year, and so a good chunk of the standards had already been taught. So now it's show what you know, show what you learned. But if you're introducing new concepts, there's no way to introduce those new concepts effectively without having more involvement and engagement from the teacher. You can't just leave it to books and reading and expect that every child is going to be successful in that way. Some, yes. I don't even think the majority. I think the hybrid is really good for that. So again, they can see their teacher, whether it's 1 day a week, 2 days a week, but they're seeing them in person and getting that real instruction. Yeah, and the 1 day, that's still not enough, because when you think about it, there's different subjects that they're covering. It needs to be more than that. Oh, but I think that it can work if done right, and if we support our teachers. I'm so curious to see my school system. I don't think that they're going to make their decision before the middle of July, and we go back to school like the beginning of August. So I think that they're really cutting it close, which is unfortunate. I'm disappointed in them for that, because I think that parents need to prepare, especially those who don't have necessarily the flexibility to work from home, being that the kids are more than likely going to be home at least some of the time. So I think that they should be doing a better job of giving parents an idea about whether or not they're going to need to try to make arrangements to be home. Is it going to be 2 days a week, or is it going to be 4 days a week? Is it going to be a half day? So they need that communication. But yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to kind of just talk through my honest thoughts on that. I'm going to let you know how it goes for us this year. But what I'm really super interested in hearing about is how everyone else is doing it. So please make sure to drop a comment below and let me know what state or area you live in, and what are you hearing? Like, what are the options on the table, and do you even know anything yet at this point? And now that we've decided for sure that it is June, not July. I know some school systems don't go back until after Labor Day, but what are you hearing? So drop it down below. Make sure to subscribe while you're here, and hit the notification bell so that you can be sure to get the future videos that I post. And until then, I will see you next time.